You spend months planning every detail of your overseas trip, the itinerary, the hotels, the restaurants. Then you land, and the first 48 hours are gone. Exhausted, you can't sleep, and you can't think straight. Here's what nobody tells you directly: that damage didn't happen when you arrived, it happened at 35,000 feet. I've made every one of these mistakes myself. My name is Aaron Patrick, and I've flown over 500,000 miles around the world, most of that traveling economy class. In this video, I share 8 mistakes that no one, especially seniors, should make on long-haul flights and how to travel instead. So let's jump right into it. Mistake number 1, piling on extra stress. This mistake starts even before you depart for the airport, when you neglect stress as a factor to minimize when you're planning your itinerary. A long-haul flight might look like downtime. You sit back, you relax, you watch a few movies, but your body is under pressure the entire time, from the altitude, the low cabin humidity, reduced oxygen, confined seating, cabin noise, and more. Here's what I see. People cut things too close, and then when time ends up working against them, their stress level surges. Many moving parts can eat up a lot of time and attention when you're traveling. I get that. Transportation to the airport, dealing with luggage, security lines, using new apps, adjusting to gate changes, and catching that connecting flight. If you haven't traveled recently, it can all be especially nerve-wracking. Worrying about getting there just isn't fun, so that's reason enough to pack your patience, so to speak. But such worry also spikes your stress hormone cortisol, which can stay elevated and contribute to suppressing your immune system function. Together with the other factors, the effect is to reduce your body's ability to defend itself against pathogens. That means you're much more vulnerable to catching colds or viruses or other illnesses during or shortly after the flight. And sickness is precisely what you want to avoid. Trust me, I've been there. So how to travel instead? The fix is to make time work for you and boost your resilience. Build in time buffers so that you worry less and you put less stress on your body. Arrange transport to the airport in advance. Arrive early. Choose direct flights if possible, or at least avoid scheduling connections where absolutely everything must go just right. It often doesn't. Recall that trying to make that last connecting flight of the day can be risky during inclement weather. If you miss it, you might end up spending the night in a hotel not of your choosing, or worse, the airport. I've had both happen to me, and I seek to avoid repeating either experience ever again. In short, make for extra time along the way so that you can relax and enjoy, come what may. Mistake number 2, forgetting to stay hydrated. This is the one that trips up almost everyone at some point. Here's the thing. Cabin humidity on long-haul flights runs between 10 and 20%. That's on a par with a desert environment like the Sahara Desert. You can lose up to 1.5 quarts or 1.5 liters of water on a 10-hour flight without sensing any perspiration or even feeling thirsty, because the thirst sensation dulls with age in part. Pause to think about that stress on your body. Your blood is already moving more slowly after 50. Dehydration makes it thicker. On a long flight, that combination of slower blood flow plus thicker blood is exactly what you don't want. The fix is simple, but too many people skip it. Start hydrating before you fly and drink water every hour of the flight that you are awake. I bring an empty bottle with me through security, and I fill it up right before boarding. Adding in electrolytes helps your body actually absorb and hold that water instead of just passing it through. Plus, it's best to skip the alcohol and the extra coffee. Both dehydrate you further, and altitude amplifies the effect. I used to think that a glass of wine on the house, in the air, was a nice way to treat myself and a way to bring on sleep more quickly. Turns out it's one of the worst things that you can do for your sleep quality and for your body on a long flight. Mistake number 3, not staying warm. Feeling cold is just uncomfortable, but it also connects directly to mistake number 4, which is the one that really scares me the most. Cabin temperatures usually drop during a long flight, and for good reasons, such as to prevent air sickness. Most travelers end up feeling cold, and here's what cold does to a body over 50. It thickens your blood, increasing clot risk. It thickens joint fluid, which is why you feel so stiff when you land, and it constricts your blood vessels, raising blood pressure temporarily. Older adults lose body heat faster as metabolism slows and skin thins with age. So a cabin temperature that feels merely cool to a 30-year-old can actively undermine your body after 50. The fix: layers. Be able to adjust as cabin temperature changes. My default is a polo shirt or a long sleeve t-shirt, plus an outer shirt, a quarter zip, or maybe a polar fleece before I get to a jacket. The game changer t-shirt for me is this Heat Tech from Japan's Uniqlo. It's available globally because I also wear it in really cold hotel rooms. I'm not affiliated with Uniqlo. I just think it is a truly great product. Some people bring their own blanket, especially in economy class. To close out on number 3, the cold is not just uncomfortable, it strains your heart, which brings me to the mistake that scares me the most. Mistake number 4, failing to protect your heart. This is the heavy one, so let's take it seriously. The Centers for Disease Control, or CDC, reports increased risk of deep vein thrombosis, or DVT, on flights over 4 hours. That's a blood clot, which can be debilitating or even fatal. Details are linked in the notes. Flights over 8 hours double the baseline risk of CAF, deep vein thrombosis. Why is that? Sitting motionless in a cabin with low oxygen, dry air, and low temperature creates the conditions for thicker blood being squeezed through narrower vessels. While the absolute risk is extremely low for healthy travelers, older travelers and those with various health conditions, not least a history of blood clots, face greater risk that is non-negligible. Here's what I want you to hear. Rather than fly assuming everything is like when you were 30, embrace the opportunities you have at your age for business or pleasure after 50, and put forth the small effort to travel in a way so that you can seize many, many more of those opportunities. The main fix is to move in flight. Ankle circles every 30 to 60 minutes in your seat. Get up and walk the aisle every couple of hours when you're awake. I also do air squats when I'm up and about. Also, wear compression socks. They serve double duty, keeping your legs warm and supporting circulation. And if you have any history of clotting or cardiovascular issues or recent medical procedures, you probably already know to consult with your doctor before travel. This video is not personalized medical advice. It's general information, but I think it's information that will benefit even healthy travelers. For those new here, this Live for Longevity channel is about one thing: helping people in their 50s and 60s add life to their years so as to thrive during the retirement they've planned for so long. This is my first video on healthy travel, inspired by taking back-to-back overseas trips the past 3 weeks, so I thought I'd share how I manage. In fact, I just returned from a flight across the Atlantic. If you're finding this content useful, please tap the like button and consider becoming a subscriber. And thank you to those of you who have already subscribed. I make these videos for people in exactly your situation. Still working, still active and traveling, still wanting to arrive at your destination feeling like yourself. Next, mistake number 5, not prioritizing sleep. This one is also big for pretty much every traveler. I mean, prioritizing sleep here, not just hoping for it. Veteran travelers know that time spent asleep in flight is directly proportional to how well you will feel at your destination. That value is part of the price of a lay-flat seat in business class. But even business class travelers need to be intentional to get your best sleep. Most people think, I'll sleep on the plane, but cabin noise levels can reach 80 to 85 decibels. That's equivalent to city traffic. Add cabin lights, temperature swings, seat discomfort. One result is suppressed melatonin production. That's your sleep hormone. Your body literally cannot do what it's trying to do. And here's why this matters more after 50. sleep quality already declines with age. You produce less melatonin naturally. Your deep sleep phases shorten. So, unlike when you were young, a long flight that disrupts sleep can wreck your sleep architecture for several days. The fix: making sleep a priority for your long haul by covering your eyes, plugging your ears, and minimizing disruptions. I use a foam eye mask that allows my eyes to blink, not the airline version. Quality earplugs are fine for me, but others may prefer noise-canceling headphones. I've already mentioned skipping alcohol rather than thinking of it as a sleep aid. You might fall asleep faster, but your sleep quality will really suffer. The payoff is that if you get any good sleep on the airplane, you will be better able to stay up through your first day on the ground at your destination and adjust to that time zone. Mistake number 6, checking out mentally. Not keeping your mind engaged while you're in the air might sound minor. It isn't. Most people either mindlessly scroll their phone or zone out completely for hours. And that disorientation after a long flight, the brain fog, the feeling that you're not quite present, it's real, and it's worse when you've been passive the whole flight. Cognitive engagement during sedentary periods, long sedentary periods especially, supports alertness and mood. Your brain needs to be processing, however, not just consuming for you to feel your best. Passive viewing or scrolling social media is consumption. Reading is processing. Good conversation or working through a problem is processing. The fix: bring a book you've been wanting to read. Download a podcast or a learning app that requires your attention. Anything that keeps your brain active, not just distracted. I'd add, on a personal note, that for decades, I've found that a block of several hours on a long flight when I'm unreachable with the devices in airplane mode can be prime time to think through a problem or to write something entirely new, like this episode. But this problem isn't really about productivity. It's about taking action to arrive sharp instead of foggy. Travelers who step off that plane mentally present have usually prepared for it. Mistake number 7. Neglecting nutrition. This one is really hard, and you can think of breaking even as a win in my view. Cabin pressure suppresses your taste buds. That's why airline food is just loaded with sodium and sugar. They're literally compensating for your reduced ability to taste. So a meal that tastes merely okay to you up in the air is probably packing twice the salt and sugar you'd eat on the ground. This affects your water retention and calories consumed without providing much joy. In the air, your body's ability to process sugar slows, so if you eat everything served, you'll likely overconsume, get cravings mid-flight anyway, and feel less than yourself as you ride that energy roller coaster up and down. So the fix is to pick what you eat and to sequence it in the same manner as you would on the ground. I usually eat before boarding, and I add to the control that I have by packing some of my own snacks rich in protein and healthy fats. I usually bring either vegetable sticks or maybe some unsalted nuts with chocolate, maybe some fruit or cheese. Some travelers pack good protein bars. On most airlines, you can also order a special meal in advance, whether it's low sodium or diabetic or vegetarian. There are usually various options. For stable energy, eat protein first, vegetables and fruit when served, and supplement with anything you bring, especially if you're in the main cabin. You'll want to avoid starting with the breadbasket or the refined carbs, and also to go light on the sugary desserts. Mistake number 8, not packing for personal comfort. The inconvenient often happens, and if you are prepared, you can make the best of a bad situation and avoid feeling awful. Even if it doesn't, some preparation is needed to help you feel your best when you arrive. For example, headaches, heartburn, muscle cramps, nasal congestion, stomach upset, or worse can all hit. The fix is to pack for physical comfort. I have an old airline amenity bag that I still use to carry small items that make a big difference for my personal comfort because it's the perfect size and the orange color tells me immediately that it's with me. In it, I pack remedies for the ailments I just mentioned, so they're right at hand. I add things like chewing gum, cough drops, eye drops, my eye mask, nail clippers, an extra pen for customs forms because sometimes you have to fill them out in paper, and a toothbrush. Maybe you'll want to add an extra set of headphones, medications if you take them. I find that every flight I pull something from this bag, and having it there makes every long flight I take more comfortable and less stressful. As I record this episode, I just returned from flying across the Atlantic, and these little eye drops were lifesavers on that flight. Your list will fit your lifestyle and situation. The key thing is to be intentional. Too many people board an airplane with nothing but a phone and a hope for the best. And then they spend 10 hours uncomfortable, dehydrated, stiff, cold, and foggy. And they think that's just how air travel works. It doesn't have to be that way. Travelers who step off that plane feeling human are the ones who prepared themselves to feel human. This isn't luxury. This is strategy. Each item you pack that solves a specific problem helps you avoid the discomfort or the annoyance that can drain your energy and amp up your stress for the entire flight. And none of them take more than a few minutes to pack. I am very confident that you'll find the time invested will pay off for your entire trip. So let me pull this together because these 8 mistakes are not 8 unrelated problems. The through line here is that these mistakes come down to one thing: assuming that you can treat your body at 35,000 feet the same way you would when it's on the ground, or the way as you did decades ago. You can't. The conditions are different. In-flight air is drier. The pressure is different. Your blood moves more slowly. Your body loses heat faster. Your taste buds are suppressed. It's harder to sleep. Everything is amplified. And after age 50, the impacts on your body are greater, which can put your enjoyment, your trip, and potentially your health at greater risk. To close, success at living well into retirement is all about consistent direction and sustainability, not perfection. And that applies to how you travel too. Not just to survive the flight, but to arrive ready to fully enjoy the trip that you planned. So the fix to most variations of these problems requires the same thing: acting intentionally, and the more you prepare, the higher the payoff when you land at your destination. So the next time you plan to travel on a long-haul flight, try to incorporate at least one and preferably as many fixes as possible that are relevant for you. Build in time buffers to reduce your stress. Hydrate, stay warm, protect your heart, prioritize sleep, pay attention to your nutrition, stay engaged mentally, and pack for personal comfort. And right now, I'd really love to hear from you about your experience. Which mistake has hit you the hardest? What are your fixes? Please drop a note in the comments. I read every one. And if you want to learn more about senior health and fitness, linked on the screen is the video of mine that YouTube thinks you would enjoy most. Thank you for watching.